Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, the fuzz is here. So big news coming from the forums. The big patch and balancing update is coming up the 18th, just 3 days from now. That's very exciting. Now because of that, I'm going to add a disclaimer to this video that perhaps it may be a little bit less valid after the patch, because what I'm going to talk about may not be the case anymore after they add the balancing changes, in which case, think of this as a cautionary tale. So I'm going to tell you a story of a hypothetical Spellweaver player, a new Spellweaver player. Let's call him Josh. Josh has been playing Hearthstone for some time, but he grew bored of the staleness of the meta that game has. These annoying face hunters, all these pre-constructed decks, blah blah blah, super boring. And with Tavern Brawl not being as great as it could be, well, he was looking for something new. So he probably came across a video here and there, heard about Spellweaver, and decided to check out some games. Maybe he saw one of our channels and he thought, well, this game looks pretty cool. This idea of being speed influencing combat, there's 2 rows and you can only attack the front row, but the back row is safe from attacks. Sounds like fun, right? And so he thinks, okay, well, I'm gonna join the open beta, contribute the $10, what have you, and then he decides to start playing. Okay, maybe he bought some extra packs to get some more cards going so he can, have a head start, if you will. So he starts up, boots up his first deck, all in anticipation. He goes up against the AI first. Let's say he picked Wisdom, right? Wisdom looks like a cool color. So he probably went with the basic deck. With his new cards, maybe he picked up some extra, what do you call them, library guards, maybe an extra Lamp of Zephyr, whatever. Enough cards to make a reasonably decent Wisdom deck, perhaps similar to the kind that Jotto recently put up as the budget version. So after playing against the AI, getting kind of the hang of the mechanics, he's feeling confident and he's ready to start playing against real people. So he queues up, runs into maybe, let's say this deck that I'm playing right now, the Rage. And he's playing, but this deck is very aggressive. And even if the aggression fails, it has some very strong follow-ups. So of course he's unable to survive. But he gets a taste of just how aggressive the meta can be, right? So he decides to refine his deck. He adds more charged Orites, adds more Disquisitive Spirits, and more Golems to strengthen his early game. And now he's really ready to take on the challenge. And then he runs into this new deck that he hasn't seen before. His opponent is playing, well, let's say, Advanced Despina. Or, I mean, Basic Despina. But it could be Advanced Despina. It could be Basic Darius. It doesn't matter what the hero is. So the game starts off, his opponent opens with a Contraptionist, and he plays the Obelisk of Unity. Okay, cool. I haven't seen that card before. I wonder what it is. And then, so he plays his stuff, plays a Golem, maybe he plays a Library Guard, whatever. And then his opponent plays New Horizons. This is completely different from the decks he faced before. He was expecting an aggressive matchup. And instead, he's got this seemingly slow game. Well, that's fine. That means he's going to be able to play. He's going to have a good time. But then, as he starts developing a board, he runs into a Cataclysm, which completely wipes him out. So he's a little bit disappointed, but that's okay. He starts rebuilding his board. He gets a Foundry Engineer, and he gets a Force Wielder, and he starts building up Golems. So he's ready to start attacking, right? But then, wait, what's that? Disarm? Oh, I guess he's not going to do any damage this turn. Oh, well. Okay, that's fine. I'll just wait till next turn. But then his opponent plays an Angelic Song, preventing him from doing any damage for the next turn. Well, that's kind of lame, right? But whatever, I'll just keep waiting until he runs out of the stupid cards. Except that his opponent is not running out of these cards. Because while he's playing Angelic Songs, he's also playing Ancient Wisdoms, slowly getting out Thalmic Reflectors. And then over the course of the game, Josh finds himself basically unable to do anything because any attempts to mount a board end in a Cataclysm, in between some Angelic Songs, and eventually after he sees 4 Thalmic Reflectors and is basically wondering, where is this all going? What is my opponent doing? Can I finally start playing this game? His opponent plays well, pick your pick, Word of Grace or Word of Pain, and then copies it like 4 times, and, you know, either gains massive amounts of life or steals massive amounts of life. And of course, you know, draws several cards, because the Reflector copies the entire effect, and part of the effect of the word cards is draw a card. So his opponent's hand is just constantly growing bigger, despite the fact that he's throwing away cards to stall with the Angelic Songs and Disarms and Cataclysms. And then, of course, his opponent hits the 40 life win condition, or he just played enough Words of Pain to drain him. So Josh is a little bit disappointed in this game, because he didn't feel like he got to play anything. He developed a board, it got destroyed, and then he spent the rest of the game just sitting there waiting for his opponent to stop stalling. But his opponent never did. His opponent basically played a game of Solitaire. And so the poor disappointed Josh decides to queue up again, hoping to avoid it, but then he runs into another player, and he runs into a similar kind of deck. And the game proceeds exactly in the same fashion, where he's just completely unable to do anything. He has no input on the battle. His opponent is making all the decisions of when to stall, when to do this, when to do that. He's just having a board and waiting until he can attack. And then eventually his opponent has so many cards that there's nothing he can do. And so this is what I wanted to address in this episode. These decks that require completely no input from your opponent. Because it doesn't matter what your opponent does, doesn't matter what creatures he has, you just defend and stall until you have your winning combo. There's no interaction between players. And I've already stated this, these decks are so boring to play against, so annoying, because you as the opponent aren't doing anything. You might as well just leave and let your opponent play your hand, because he's usually either not doing anything or just swinging all out face. And whether or not you win the game against such a stall deck is entirely dependent on whether or not they can stall long enough, whether they have a good enough hand where they can extend the stall indefinitely. You might do a little bit better if you've got more artifact and spell destruction, because you can break Angelic Songs and what have you. But if you don't, well, then that just sucks. And I've been thinking about that. Well, why is this even a valid strategy? Why is doing nothing good for you? Well, there are several reasons. Well, there's 2 main reasons. First of all, the card draw that is available in Spellweaver sometimes becomes a little bit too ridiculous. Not only because Basic Dares draws you a card, but because Ancient Wisdom is a draw 2 for just 2 mana, which is a little bit too efficient. Generally, draw 2 cards has costed 3 mana. In both Spellweaver, both Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, there were cards that drew you 2 cards for exactly 3 mana. Now, yes, it's 2 aspects and 2 mana, which is technically turn 3, but it's still 2 mana. So once you have extra mana, it only costs you 2 mana to get 2 new cards. But in addition to that, there is no way to punish your opponent when he's sitting and doing nothing. We had one tool that did just that, and that was a card which I've been kind of missing since it left. The card Maddening Thoughts. The one you attach to your opponent, and he milled 2 cards every turn. Because once you did that, your opponent was basically on the clock, because he was milling his deck. He couldn't just sit and do nothing, because his deck would be milled out. If it was a combo stall deck like One Turn Heal or Chalice or whatever, I'm just going to call them the everlasting stall decks, because they're all basically the same. They just have a different flavor of how they win. These decks would be in danger because they could easily mill out their combo pieces, and then the opponent could then just sit back and laugh as the guy's entire deck is milled. Now, why was that card removed? It was because it was a little bit too powerful for Trials, because those decks only had 45 cards. If you drafted 3 or 4, your deck could be just unstoppable. I honestly think removing it wasn't the greatest idea. A simple solution would have just been to make it cost more mana, because it cost 2 mana with 1 aspect to equip to your opponent, and it milled 2 every turn. You could have just made it cost 3 or even 4, but then it would mill more cards. Now, if it costs 3 or 4, you can't just draft a lot of them, because they would be way too slow. By the time you attach any of them to your opponent, you don't have a board. Your opponent is just gonna kill you. Whereas for two mana, you could get a turn 2, 3, and 4, and your opponent is milling 6 cards a turn, and you could often just win without doing anything. But I really do miss the card. I thought Maddening Thoughts was a great card to break these stalemates, because you would be on the clock. You wouldn't be able to just sit and do nothing while you accumulate these cards, while you draw more cards, because eventually your deck's gonna run out. So that's what we need. And I'm hoping that when the new expansion does come out, we do get something like that. While I don't like milling as, you know, a win condition, as a strict win condition of your deck does nothing but try to mill, I would like there to be a card that punishes stalling. Punishes your opponent for doing nothing. That way, doing nothing would be a lot worse of a strategy. And it wouldn't be as frustrating to play against these decks, because at least you would have some way to combat them. Add that card to your deck, and there you go. And you can do something about it. In fact, Maddening Thoughts was fairly played because it was an effective tool to combat control decks. Just attach it to them. If they don't remove it, they're gonna mill cards, and they might mill important cards. An aggressive deck doesn't care if you mill it, because most of its cards are, you know, similar quality. That, and the deck doesn't stall the game out for long. A deck like the one I'm playing right now either wins quickly or it wins a little bit later, with cards like Dragonfire, Phoenixes, or, you know, Red Dragon if really necessary. But I'm never trying to stall. Oh man, another freaking Harpy? Come on, man. Have some love. That's okay. And so, without such a card, these decks can continue to exist without any repercussions. And I'm not saying these are the best decks. I'm just saying these are extremely one-dimensional, boring decks that I absolutely despise playing against, and seriously disrespect players who play them. I mean, except, you know, Raijin, because I'm sure he played his deck just to prove a point that, yeah, this deck is ridiculous. Hey, can we nerf it? I'm winning every game with this stupid deck where I have no interaction with my opponent. So I'm hoping that some of the changes will address this, although this wasn't brought up much in the forums compared to other things like Karthus, Cataclysm, Wisdom Dominion being broken, you know, Guardian of the Faithful being ridiculously overpowered. All those things are still true, but once that gets fixed, the next layer of problems will reveal itself, such as these stall decks being really stupid to play against. And also cards like Thaumic Reflector, which I think is one of our sleeper cards. It's one of those cards that right now is not really seen as super broken, but it could easily become broken because of its ability to just constantly spam cards, combined of course with Obelisk of Unity to just manipulate your aspects. This basically allows you to play several of these words at very high effectiveness, which is not at all what their point is. Their point is, you run a mono deck, you run these word cards, you're rewarded. The words will become more powerful. But instead, you just use Wisdom, and you can use several of these words. Word of Grace is popular because it heals you really, really heavily. Word of Pain I've seen played a little bit because, well, you know, you do damage to your opponent. You could even just use Fireballs or Fire Blasts or whatever, just to, you know, you just need one Dragon Fire. This card right here, 5 damage. You copy this twice with a Reflector, you're doing 15 damage. Good times, right? So this is basically the essence of what I wanted to address. We need something to encourage interactive play. Stalling and sitting and doing nothing should never be a good thing. It should not be encouraged. But, well, I can only sit and hope that this will be addressed. Because I want this message to go out, I will also make a post about this in the forums, because I know that not that many people watch my videos, and so I want everyone to know about this. I want everyone to pay attention to this. Hey, we might need to do something about this. But don't worry, guys. I still have faith in this game. Our developers have done a great job addressing issues like that, and so I have no doubt that they will also take care of any problems that come up, like ones that'll come up after we fix the current broken decks. Because, for instance, in the past, for those of you guys that weren't around, what was it called? Electrostatic Storm was a ridiculously stupid card, because how it worked is it didn't have energy, it just always dealt 3 damage at the start of each player's turn to a random creature. But 3 damage? is enough to kill most things. So if you had like several storms on the board, you could never have a board. Anything you put up just died. So Lamp of Zephyr was like the only thing that didn't immediately die. So that was pretty lame. Storm got fixed, and then, you know, the next level of brokenness revealed itself. The whole Advanced Despina, Karthus, Cataclysm shenanigans. And also, by extension, the Angels and the Stall decks. So once we fix those, I wonder what the next broken combo deck will be, but I don't think there'll be that many more. We just need to make more cards focus on interacting with the board, with the game more. Solitaire decks are really not fun to play against. Playing a Solitaire deck, you know, being the player playing it, isn't as boring because you actually do make decisions. You do have to decide how much damage you're willing to take, how much damage you have to get rid of before your opponent kills you. If your opponent has 8 damage on the board, you have 12 life, can you afford to take the 8 damage, or do you have to play Disarm? So you do have some decisions, but you're playing a one-player game. You might as well be playing a completely mindless AI, because the decisions your opponent has to make are basically just that, mindless. Anybody could make them. You could even just play against yourself. You know, put up this deck that I'm playing right now, put it up against your stall deck, and it'll be just like playing another player. Okay, that's enough ranting for one video. I haven't ranted this much since my Divine Offering video. But anyways, I'm going to finish this game. This is an interesting deck. It looks like the guy's just trying to do the, what's it called? What's this deck called? The Reanimator deck? He's trying to do that, but he's using the basic hero. You normally use the advanced hero because you can reanimate the stuff and then, you know, sacrifice it, then bring it back. I'm guessing he just doesn't have that one and is just trying whatever. He does have good cards like the Library Guards, Disquisitive Spirit, so they're probably just placeholder cards until he gets the deck that he really wants. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will make the video covering the changes as soon as I know about them. And I'm sure other channel makers like the wonderful Bolt or the Amazing will also cover them. So watch out for those. And thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day. Oh, I guess here I'll swing for lethal. Now I'll just blow up the board. Yay! This deck is, I guess, pretty good. Alright, see you guys.